Hello everyone, my name is Ivo and welcome to Cooking with the Koyas. It is great to see you because today, folks, we're going to make two similar but different loaves of Southern Italian crusty bread. We're going to use a variety of flours, folks, that's going to make an amazing flavor. And the difference between the two loaves of bread, one loaf is going to be your traditional loaf of bread using instant or active dry yeast. And the second loaf of bread, folks, we're going to use with our sourdough starter. So if you have a sourdough starter, you could follow that second recipe. If you don't have a sourdough starter, you can follow the first one. But either way, we're going to make both loaves of bread. We're going to compare both loaves of bread, and I'm going to show you the differences between the two once we finish baking them. But right now, let's get started and make our dough. So let's get our first one going with using traditional yeast. And we're going to start off 50 grams, which is 1.8 ounces of rye flour. To that, we're going to add 25 grams, which is 0.9 ounces of whole wheat flour. Now, the magic ingredient, 250 grams, which is 8.8 ounces of durum wheat semolina. You saw it was nice and yellow in color. Yes, that's the same wheat they use to make pasta, but it's key in southern Italy for bread making. As far as all-purpose flour, right here, folks, 325 grams, which is 11.5 ounces of all-purpose flour. For salt, we're just using regular table salt, fine table salt, 13 grams, which is 1.5 teaspoons. Here I have 4 grams, which is 1.5 teaspoons as well, of diastatic malt powder. Okay, that's a nice superfood for our yeast. And of course, speaking of yeast, I have here 1/4 teaspoon, which is 1 gram of instant yeast, or you could use active dry yeast as well. All right, so those are our dry ingredients for our first loaf of bread. We're going to mix those ingredients together. Okay, just get them all incorporated nicely. Okay, there we have it. Now we're going to add our water. And here I have 435 grams, which is 15.3 ounces of warm water. Lukewarm water, about 80 degrees. Okay, and now we're going to mix that water in and start to make our dough. All right. Get it all mixed in, and yes, we're going to get in there with our hands, but let's get it incorporated first. Okay. So as you can see there, it's just roughly coming together. There's still a lot to pick up, so we're gonna use our hand and do the rest. Okay, so basically we're gonna get our hands right in there and start squeezing the dough together. Just pick it up and squeeze it. Pick it up and squeeze it. And pick up the remaining. We have some loose flour there as well. I'm not sure if you could see that or not, but we're going to pick up that loose flour and start squeezing. Continue to pick up the flour. You want all that flour to be picked up and absorbed into the dough, which is very sticky, okay? As it should be, so don't worry about that. Okay, and it looks like we've pretty much got all the dough picked up. Okay, so now it's a matter of doing that squeezing, which is called the pincer method. And we're going to squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Lift it up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. So all I'm doing is just squeezing it through my hands, and that way it's getting everything incorporated, all those ingredients incorporated together. So I'm going to do this for about 2 minutes. Okay, and it's been about 2 minutes, and what's happened here is it's started to firm up a bit and feel a little bit different. Okay, it's still very, very sticky, and again, that's perfectly fine. And now that part is done. So we are going to, let me just get cleaned up here. We're going to and put a lid. We will put a lid on this dough. And if I didn't mention it, by the way, That's the hardest part. That's it. That 2 minutes of mixing, that's about as hard as this recipe gets. All right, so before I put the top on, I just like to form the dough into a bit of a ball and just kind of, we're gonna let that rest now. So we're gonna put the cover on that, and let's move our other ingredients over and start our sourdough version. Bread number 2, our sourdough version. Same thing, 50 grams, which is 1.8 ounces of rye, same as before. 25 grams, 0.9 ounces of whole wheat, same as before. Again, semolina, durum wheat semolina, see how nice and yellow it is. 250 grams, 8.8 ounces, same as before. This is where things start to get a little different. All-purpose white flour, we only need 125 grams, which is 4.4 ounces. Salt is the same, 13 grams or 1.5 teaspoons. Diastatic malt is the same, 4 grams or 1.5 teaspoons. That's it for our dry ingredients. We're going to mix those together just as we did with the other ones. Okay, now that they're incorporated, time to add our liquid ingredients. So we're going to tear this out. There we go. I have some beautiful sourdough starter right here, and as you can see, it's active. It's doubled in size. So you want an active sourdough starter, and we are going to add, folks, 400 grams of active sourdough starter, which is 14.1 ounces. Okay, so let's get our 400 grams in there. We're up to about 350 now. And 370. Let's keep it going. 383. 394. And 399.6, so I guess that's close enough, right? But what the heck, here we go, a little bit more. 400, okay, perfect. So we have our 400 grams, which is, like I say, 14.1 ounces of active sourdough starter. We still need some water, folks. Again, lukewarm water, about 80 degrees. This is 235 grams or 8.3 ounces of warm water. And now, same thing. We're going to mix to incorporate, just as we did last time. And then we're going to get our hands in there, and we're going to continue mixing, just as we did last time. Okay, I'm going to get in there with my hands now, and we'll start to get this all put together. So, in we go. Again, very sticky. Pick up any loose flour, incorporate it. We still have some loose flour, you can see in there. There's some loose flour in there, but not much, very little. Okay, we're going to get that picked up. Okay, I've got all the loose flour picked up, so now it's a matter of using that pincer method, and we're going to lift, squeeze, lift and squeeze, lift up the dough and squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. We're going to do this for 2 minutes, just as we did last time. Okay, and same thing here. It's firmed up a bit as we've been squeezing our dough. Lifting and squeezing, and our 2 minutes are now up, and yes, it sticks as well. So let's get cleaned up and get the lid on this also. Now, so we don't get messed up, we're just going to write sourdough on this one. We're going to label that. That's our sourdough one. And the other one is, let's just call it regular yeast. Okay. That's our regular yeast one. Okay, there we have it. Is it going to stick? There we go. Okay, so here's our sourdough one right there. and here is our regular yeast right there, side by each. And these now we need to wait for them to double. These will double. They should double up to about the 2 liter, 2 quart mark. They should come up to about here. So it should rise from there up to here. And it typically takes, folks, anywhere from 10 to 14 hours, but basically the average, it's about 12 hours at a house temperature of around 69 degrees. So I'm going to cover those up and we're going to let those rest for about 12 hours. And then we will come back and take a look and see how our progress is doing before we get to our next step, which of course is also going to be very, very easy. So here we are about 11 and a half hours later, thereabouts, and let's take a look at our doughs and see how they're doing. But keep this in mind, folks. I said these breads are similar but different. The amount of ingredients that we've used are actually the same. The amount of flour and the amount of water in these doughs is the same. The sourdough starter we used is 50% flour and 50% water. So although we varied how much dry flour we put in because of that, the actual ingredients in these doughs are exactly the same. Really, the only difference is one has instant or active dry yeast and the other one uses a sourdough starter. Okay, so now let's do a comparison and see where we're at. So let's take a look. Look at there, folks. As I had mentioned, it's going to be around the 2 liter, 2 quart mark. And ironically, both of these doughs, even though this one here has got the active dry or the instant yeast, this one here has the sourdough, they've both risen up to the same level. And in fact, if you look, they're both nice and airy and nice and bubbly. So great results with both methods. All right, let's get them shaped. So let's do our sourdough one first. We're going to do them both at the same time. But here we get, I have a bread banneton here, which I'm going to use to proof our bread. If you don't have a banneton, you can use just a cutting board, preferably a plastic cutting board, and put some whole wheat flour or oatmeal on your cutting board and then put your bread dough on top so it doesn't stick. But we're going to use a bread banneton, and if you don't have one, I highly recommend them. They're not expensive. They work great. Okay, so we've lined one with, I've used whole wheat flour because I found that it prevents sticking much better than regular flour, but regular flour will do as well. So we're going to take our sourdough out of its container. I like to use a spatula just to kind of work it and ease it out and onto our surface. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful dough, folks. It's a little bit of dough here. Put that in there as well. Okay, there we have that. Now, quite simply, we're going to do what's called a four-fold, and that's where you basically grab one end of the dough, stretch, lift, and fold it over. Grab another end of the dough, lift, stretch, and fold it over. Grab the other end, fold over, and finally the other side. There's your four folds. Okay? Then, quite simply, turn it upside down, and to shape it into a round, basically, you're going to cup your hands behind the dough and roll it towards you. Give it a turn, cup, and roll towards you. Give it a turn, cup, and roll towards you. And what happens is the dough is gripping the counter and it's rolling and tightening up into a ball. Okay, so you do that about, 5 or 6 times. There we go. We have our nice round shape there right now. That goes in the banneton. We could put a little bit of flour on top just because we're going to cover it. We don't want to stick. Okay, so that is our sourdough one. Let's do our regular one now as well. Same thing to the regular one. Okay, and a four-fold here. 1, 2, 3, 4 over. And same thing, we're going to shape this one as well. 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to go 7. There we go. And there's a nice round as well. Look at that. This dough actually feels a little bit different than our sourdough. Okay, and there we go. So we have our regular one here. We have our sourdough one here. And what we're going to do now, folks, we're just going to cover them and we're going to let them rest, because in 2 hours they will be ready to bake. So that means at 1.5 hours, we're going to preheat our oven. It's been 1.5 hours, so it's time to preheat our oven. And in our oven, we're going to put 2 empty Dutch ovens. Nothing inside, just plain empty Dutch ovens, 2 of them, one for each loaf of bread. Now, if you do not have a Dutch oven, by all means, any oven container will do, so long as it's big enough and that it has a lid. Okay? But it's very important to do this preheat. So in they go. The oven's going to go on to 475 degrees. We're going to get our oven good and hot and those Dutch ovens good and hot. So 30-minute preheat and we'll come right back at you. Our 30-minute preheat is now done. So let's take these Dutch ovens out of the oven. Hot, hot, hot. Perfect. Okay. And that means our dough has now, that makes 2 hours that our dough has been resting very patiently. All right, let's take them out of the bannetons. And let's check out our doughs. Oh, look at that, folks. Isn't that nice? Sourdough, regular yeast. The regular yeast one might be a little bit bigger. Okay, so we are going to carefully take this, do the sourdough one here, and carefully place it into our Dutch oven. And I'm going to score the top. So maybe what I'll do, because this is the sourdough one, I will put the letter S on the top so that we don't get confused. Now, mind you, it looks like it's all breaking apart on me. Okay, well, we tried to do a letter S. Okay, that's the sourdough one. So now, let's carefully place our regular yeast one. Carefully placed. And, I don't know, we're just going to cut 3 lines up the middle. You just want to score the tops about, about 1/4 inch deep, 6-7 millimeters or so. I'll put 3 lines in that one. That's going to help it rise. And let's put these into the oven with the lid on, folks, with the lid on. Okay, so this is the regular yeast. We're going to put on this side, and the sourdough we'll put on this side right here. All right, so in they go. Sourdough, regular yeast. So we are going to now, folks, continue to bake. We're going to bake with the lid on for 30 minutes. Then we're going to remove the lid and cook it some more. So let's give it 30 minutes with the lid on. So our 30 minutes are up. Let's take a look and see how our bread is doing. Okay, this is the sourdough one right here. Oh, that's looking good. That's looking good. And our regular yeast. Oh, that's looking good too. Okay, so I've taken the lids off, and now they have to cook with the lid off for anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, depending on your oven. So in my oven, it's usually around 12 minutes. So at the 12-minute mark, we're going to take a look at the bread. You want to see that nice golden color on the top, and I like mine to be a little bit darker on the top. So we'll take a look in about 12 minutes and see how they're doing. Time to check our bread. It's been 12 minutes. And sourdough is looking really good. And so is the regular one. I want them just a little bit darker. I'm going to give them 2 more minutes. Alrighty, let's take another look. It's been 2 more minutes. You know what? That's fine. We're going to shut it down. There is our beautiful sourdough bread right there, folks. And here's another beauty. That is the regular yeast, which to me looks a little bit bigger and a little bit higher, but we're going to take a close look at both of these. But that right there, folks, is our sourdough bread right there. And let's take a look at our regular yeast bread, which is this one, where I put the 3 lines across the top. Okay, so we're going to put these side by each, and let's take a look at the comparison between the two. So here is our beautiful sourdough bread loaf, or loaf of bread. And here is another beauty, folks. There we have it. Now, if we look at the comparison between the two, our sourdough one has definitely not risen as high as our one with the regular yeast. And the regular yeast one looks a little bit bigger than the sourdough one, wouldn't you say? Slightly bigger, rounder, fuller than the sourdough one. But folks, the proof is in the pudding. We're going to cut both of these open. We'll let them rest an hour. We're going to let them rest 1 hour. They should rest at least 30 minutes, but we'll let them go closer to an hour. We'll cut them up the middle, and we'll take a look, and we'll see what the insides are like. And then, of course, we're going to do the taste test, because that's, folks, where the rubber hits the road, is in the taste between the two. Okay, let's give them a rest. Let them cool down. Yes, I've patiently waited an hour. Folks, here are our beautiful 2 loaves of rustic Southern Italian bread. Let's take a look at the bottoms. This one here is the sourdough. This is the regular yeast, but the bottoms are cooked perfectly. That's the color that I actually like with my breads. And there they are. This is the regular yeast. This is the sourdough. And you could see a little bit of size difference between the two, right? Just a bit. Okay. Let's cut in and do the taste test. So we're going to cut into both of them. You know what? Let's do this. Let's do the sourdough loaf first. No, I've turned them around, folks. This is the sourdough. Okay. Let's keep things in order here. Sourdough, smaller loaf, right up the middle. Oh boy, folks. We got a winner here. There is our sourdough loaf of bread cut right there. And we have a beautiful, beautiful crumb. Nice and airy, as you can see. Again, just from the sourdough, and a beautiful, beautiful crusty crust on the outside. Okay, so there is our sourdough. Now this loaf, which is, as we said, bigger, we're going to cut it right up the middle as well. Oh, take a look at that. Oh my goodness, folks. Okay, you can see the crumb, folks. Beautiful crumb, aerated. It looks slightly more, maybe. Let's take a look. Sourdough on the bottom, regular one on the top. Actually, they're pretty close to being about the same. They're pretty close to being the same. They got a beautiful crumb, beautiful crust. So besides the size of them, the texture of the bread, although maybe the regular yeast one has a little bit bigger air pockets, but not much, not really, not much. And again, now we used basically the same ingredients for each loaf of bread. All right, taste test. Sourdough first. I'm going to cut an end off because I absolutely love the end pieces. They're my favorite. That's an amazing loaf of bread. Flavorful. There's a nice sourdough taste to it. Plus, don't forget, we used 4 different flours to give us that Southern Italian feel. And the bread is slightly off color just a bit because of that yellow durum wheat semolina that we used. It's just a little bit off white. Okay, now for the non-sourdough, same thing. I'm just going to take a piece of the end here. Look at that. Isn't that nice, folks? That's beautiful. Beautiful loaf of bread. Again, 4 flours, beautiful taste, but I'm going to say a mild taste because it doesn't have that sourdough bite. Let's call it a bite to it. But fantastic, fantastic bread right there, folks. I would say I personally like the sourdough one better because it's just more flavorful. And yeah, they're both outstanding. Don't get me wrong. Either way, you can't go wrong. But if you have a sourdough starter, by all means, that's a winner. And you know what? It's risen enough. It's big enough. Maybe not as big as this other one, but still, folks, quite nice. Absolutely beautiful. And you know what? Why not make yourself some fresh bread today? Sourdough, or just use regular instant yeast or active dry yeast. There's nothing like homemade bread made in your own house, in your own kitchen. And you know what? If you're going to a dinner party, what a great thing to bring along to your family and friends. They'll absolutely love it. Right now, my kitchen smells like a bakery. I'm loving it. These are amazing loaves of bread, Southern Italian style, using 4 different flours. What taste, what flavor, amazing crust, amazing bread. Hope you give it a try. Folks, I want to thank you for spending time in the kitchen with me. And you know what makes me very happy is if you actually make and try the recipe and enjoy it. That's what it's all about. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, buon appetito. Time to slice more bread and put some nice fresh olive oil on it. Mm-hmm.